stories out of Canberra. But first, to some breaking news now on the horse trading over those media reforms. I'm joined now from Canberra by our political reporter Sam Maiden. Sam, what's the latest?
Understands that one of the things that David Leyonhjelm has negotiated as part of his support for these media reforms, you're not going to see in the amendments, but it's a look at liberalisation of online poker legislation in Australia. Now, this is not online poker machines, this is online poker games. David Leyonhjelm argues that there is a skill involved in this. It's not just sort of straight mindless gambling, but there is currently a prohibition on onshore providers providing poker games online in Australia. Now, he has gone public many times in the past that he believes that this should be liberalised, but he hasn't linked it to media reforms previously. My understanding is that that has happened behind closed doors. He's describing it as a liberty offset for his support for the media reforms, and he has reached some agreement with the Communications Minister, Mitch Fifield, to have a look at this. Now, any liberalisation of these online poker laws would have to go to the party room, of course. It'd have to be discussed by the Liberal Party room. The Communications Mitch Fifield has instructed his department to undertake some preliminary work at examining the feasibility of Australian onshore providers obtaining licences to operate online poker here in Australia. And of course, Human Services Minister Alan Tudge would obviously have to be involved in that discussion as well. Senator Leyonhjelm believes that he's won an in-principle battle, and the question is how to make this happen in practice. He has flagged, though, that he will support those media reforms. This is what he had to say on Sky News today.
No, I don't like the idea of throwing $60 million of taxpayers' funds at something that just because Nick thinks it's a good idea. But I've had to weigh up, what's the bigger issue here? Is there, is there sufficient reason to say no, I'm not going to support it? And in the end, I've had to sort of hold my nose and say yes, I'll go along with it.
The media in this country is in crisis. Google and Facebook are ripping away over $4 billion worth of advertising revenue from you, and it is a very significant issue. And for it to be tackled, it is something that we need to have these countervailing measures. Media organisations want to be able to consolidate. The 2 out of 3 rule is an outdated rule. It's in the pre-internet era, so we needed to do this. But there needed to be some countervailing measures for small and regional publishers, and these measures are fundamentally good for media.
Now, I understand that the Liberal Democrat Senator David Leyonhjelm has discussed this with Nick Xenophon. There doesn't seem to be any suggestion that it's going to scuttle or change anyone's view in relation to this. Nick Xenophon has extracted his own concessions in relation to this legislation, and it's expected the debate on that will recommence after lunchtime today in the Senate. And as I said, this online gambling stuff, it's not going to be a formal amendment to a legislation. It is an agreement that David Leyonhjelm has sought separately with the Communications Minister, Mitch Fifield, but it's just an interesting example of some of the horse trading that you see behind the scenes. It doesn't always get fleshed out in the legislation, and David Leyonhjelm, of course, as I mentioned, calls it a liberty offset. So there you go, there's a new word for it.